There's Judy.
Good evening, everybody. Parashat Vayigash, the beginning of the parasha is the big speech of Yehuda, and we'll deal with it at length just now. And as always, we'll dedicate the shiur to Hatzlacha of all Chayalei Tzahal and all Am Yisrael, wherever they are. At the beginning is the speech of Yehuda, and it's attached somehow to the end of Parashat Miketz, where Yosef found Kivyachol, a goblet, Gavia, at the bottom of Binyamin. Okay, and then Yehuda suggested before that if Yosef would find Gavia in any one of the brothers, so all of them would be slaves. And now Yehuda gets, and as the Midrash says, you can feel the tension because Yehuda is the leader of the 10 brothers, whereas Yosef, or maybe even the 11 brothers, and Yosef is the leader from the other side as a secondary king of Egypt or wherever from the other side. And of course, it symbolizes the two kings for the future in Am Yisrael, where it will be maybe a little bit different, and you'll have the two tribes of Yehuda and Binyamin. Binyamin will move and will be with Yehuda, not with Yosef, his brother. And Yehuda, that now he is a majority with 11 tribes, will be just the head of 2. And Yosef, Yerovam, would be the head of 10 tribes. And the Midrash says, Ki hine hamelachim no'adu לשבת יחדיו. So there is we called it, I don't know how it's called in English, we called it in Hebrew, מפגש פסגה, a peak encounter between, it used to be with the head of Russia and the head of United States, okay? Khrushchev and Kennedy. So it's the same thing happened with Yehuda and Yosef, and you know the description that the hair of Yehuda, out of his anger, he started shivering, and all Mitzrayim was shivering because of his anger, and Yosef was really afraid that he would kill him. And here you feel the tension, and as I said a few weeks ago, but when we spoke about the tension that we have at the beginning of Parashat Vayishlach between Yaakov and Esav, and Hahar Olid Achbar, okay, that the mountain has given birth to a mouse. That's how we call it in Hebrew. You have a lot of speaking about attention, and then at the end of the day, it turned out like a very nice and peaceful encounter. The same thing happens here, even nicer, when Yosef cannot לא יכול להתאפק, and then he says, אני יוסף אחיכם, אשר מכרתם אותי ממצרימה, etc., etc. The speech of Yehuda might be the longest in Sefer Bereshit. Actually, it's not true, because the blessings of Yaakov in the following Parshat Vayechi is longer, are longer. But the speech is long. The speech is long, and it includes a lot of rhymes and things that he mentions, like Av, Avi, Avinu, and Yeled Zkunim Katan. So the difference between Av and Yeled, and he talks about Adoni versus Avdecha. Okay, here Adoni versus Avdecha. A lot of things, times that he mentions Avdecha, and here he has Adoni, v'nomer el Adoni, Avdecha vi, okay? He has a lot of amirot and a lot of diber, okay? Yedaber na, Avdecha davar, whereas he has v'nomer, and you know that to lomar in Hebrew is softer than לדבר זה דברים קשים. That's why Chazal said in the Midrash that at the beginning he comes with a lot of anger and he's very, very aggressive, and he might even be aggressive to Yosef. Yosef is afraid. So he has a lot of things, Av, Ach, Adon, Eved, Amar, Diber, and it's very interesting because if we were instead of him, we would discuss with Yosef that I'm not guilty. We're not guilty at all. That you know that it's all a big, stupid blame, that none of us has ever stolen anything. But Yehuda is very, very cautious in not saying explicitly that he knows that it's all a big game. He never said that we are chafim mipesha, that we haven't done anything. We're innocent, we haven't done anything. He doesn't say that, even though, because at the end of Parashat Miketz, he said that if you would find, so it says that we are guilty, and he doesn't speak from the facts that in the Metziut, he speaks from the moral facts, and he knows that we are guilty because we have macharnu, we have our brother stood in front of us and we haven't done anything, and therefore he knows that everything that happens is magia lanu. Therefore he doesn't say explicitly, never, that we're innocent, all over his speech. What
But Rabbi, does he know that Binyamin is innocent? Maybe he suspects Binyamin of being a thief.
Okay, that's another issue. That's a good question, but we haven't gone through it. The whole system that Yosef built here by putting Shimon in jail and then telling them that without Binyamin you cannot come. So the whole story was meant in order to show them how Binyamin is not guilty. Okay, you have to it's connected to the last week's parasha, but we'll say it now. Yosef at the first time put money in the bottom of their sacks. Okay, and they found it, and they were very astonished, and then they told Yaakov. So he might be aware of the fact that the brothers would check out their sakim, their possessions, at the second time. With the pshat, it's not a question, because at the first time he was suspecting them as spies, and at the second time he was a friend of them and he spoke with them, so they have no reason why to check out their possessions. But Yosef might be aware of the fact that they might check their possessions, and found before his servant did it that he had hidden money or goblet by Binyamin, and he takes a risk. Because he builds the whole system in order that the whole brothers would defend Binyamin, will guarantee Binyamin, will take achrayut on Binyamin, and therefore, based on most Chazal, he was sure that Binyamin hadn't done anything. You know, I know that you're right, and there is a gisha in Chazal, an attitude that they told Binyamin, you are a thief, and your mother was a thief. She stole from Lavan at Atrafim, and you're stealing from Yosef. But at the end of the day, even after saying that, I'm still stand behind what I've said, that the brothers defend, and Yehuda comes, or at least I'll come to speak from this point of view, that Yehuda and Binyamin are in one big rod. He know that he hasn't done anything, and therefore, by saying, by not mentioning the innocence of the brothers, it's something we have to discuss why he hasn't done it. He knows that there was a plot. And even though he doesn't mention explicitly that there was a plot, you might say that he's afraid of the big king, but as I said, he speaks very aggressively. So he could have spoken with worse words, and he doesn't use anything about it. And he asked for his pardon, which is very mekubal, which is very common thing, but he never asks for rachamim. You won't see any word of mercy all over the speech. So what I want to say is that Yehuda doesn't go to the sides, to the extent from both sides. He doesn't say we're not guilty, we're innocent. He doesn't say it's a big plot. You make the whole story. He doesn't say it explicitly. On the other hand, he doesn't say just be merciful. Just it's a plot, don't do anything to us. He tries to go in between. If you remember, when starting the story of Yosef 2 weeks ago, we said that it was like a drasha, but I really meant it, that Yaakov made ועשה לו כתונת פסים. He made a technicolor dream code for Yosef. And what does it mean? So was it a pajama? Was it a beautiful coat, a special coat that Yosef had? So I brought an explanation that pasim means stripes, and pasim means black and white. It can be colorful, it can be a lot of colors, but it's stripes, meaning to say that there is no smudge between the colors, between the variety of colors. There is red, there is black, there is white. And that symbolizes Yosef, because Yosef goes to the sides, to the extent. If he's black, he's black. If he's white, he's white. If he's tzaddik, he's pure tzaddik. If he's in Egypt, he's a pure king who does a lot of things for Egypt. Yeah, it's you can see it throughout the Mefarshim, even in our Parshat, when we said about the double identities that he has, whether he functions like a Jewish leader in a foreign country. Sometimes, United States sent its shagrir to, ambassador to Eretz Israel, and in recent years, it's all, they are Jews, they're usually religious, and a lot of people expect them to function mamash like somebody from the shul, that just representing United States. But sometimes they represent United States, and secondary, okay, that there are Jews as well, sometimes religious Jews as well. So it's two ways to see how you function in a foreign country. That's a whole problem of the Galus. And throughout all the endeavors that Yosef make in this parasha, later on he'll buy all the karkaot. Yes, he'll feed all Mitzrayim, and then they'll run of food, and then he'll buy their mikneh. After the mikneh is run out, so he'll buy their karkaot, the real estate, and then there'll be slaves. And a lot of the Meforshim said that he did it. Yes, I'll show you in a second. ויקן יוסף את כל אדמת מצרים, אוקיי? ואת העם העביר אותו לערים, מקצה גבול מצרים ועד קצהו. Meaning to say that Yosef, Rashbam said, was like Sancheriv. He moved populations from one place to another. Why did he do that? So you might see in the Rishonim two attitudes. One said, I think it might be Rashi, I don't remember, that he said it in order that his brothers would feel at home. They won't feel foreigners. So now, from now on, everybody will be a foreigner because he'll move Alexandria to Cairo and Cairo to Alexandria, etc. So nobody will be in her place, and they'll all feel like foreigners. And then his brothers will be the same. That's the one that said that. One of the Rishonim, maybe Sforno, hold that Yosef functioned as an ambassador of Am Israel. He never cared for what's good for Egypt, for the Egyptian. He did his role fair enough, but you know, from in between, he cared for his brothers. Others said no, he didn't care for his brothers. It was good for the population. He didn't want them to come to Paro after a few years and say, I have a chazaka in my real estate. So he said, okay, you have no chazaka. If you were in Cairo, now you're in Alexandria, no chazaka at all. So he cared for the Paro's interest. So here again, you see here the two sides of the leader. And as I said before, Yosef functions like a stripes, like he is black in one when he does a thing and he's white when he does his thing. And if he is a religious Jew, so he will never let himself sin. That's why he could stand in front of Eshet Potiphar without sinning, because his whole system is that I never sin. Once I sin, I fall, I cannot stop it. So I won't do the first step, because once I've done it, it's all over. And we see it all over Yosef, Yerovam. Once they start with Avodat Elilim, once Yerovam brings the two calves or whatever is a worship of two psalim in Dan and Beit El, they never stop. All over Sefer Melachim, all the kings do it. Whereas Yehuda is very in the middle, and he never goes with stripes. He never goes with black and white. He goes with a lot of gray. And we've seen it even last week with Mechirat Yosef, or 2 weeks ago, with Mechirat Yosef. Yehuda doesn't come at the beginning and say, we want sell him, or we won't kill him. Because that's something that you have to be with koach, with power, with black and white, and say, I won't murder him. I let him free. Yehuda doesn't do it. He does it in steps. At the beginning, Reuven says, don't murder him, just put him in the pit. And then Yehuda comes and says, no, don't put it in the pit, sell him to the Ishmaelim. So he does everything in gray, in very small step, because he doesn't do the big steps. It is not like Yosef. Yosef is black and white. He has his own shita. He never moves from that. That's why we will never see that Yosef regrets for anything he has done. Even at the end, he won't say anything about slicha from his brothers. You might say that he doesn't have to, because they sin to him, not he sin to them. But we know from the beginning of the confrontation between them that he defamated them, and Yosef dibatam ra alavihem. So he might have asked for their slicha as well. He never does it, because he has his own shita, and all is very clear from beginning to the end. HaKadosh Baruch Hu set it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided I will be the king. He knows how to solve his chalomot, and he does it the whole way. Whereas Yehuda is more gray, is more in the middle. He doesn't know what to do, but that's his advantage, that he can function in any place, because if Yosef moves even a step from his shita, he can fail. Whereas Yehuda can do, he's a real king of Am Yisrael. He can function in any place, in any step, in any situation, because he doesn't function just with black and white. He can function with the gray. That's why here in his speech, he doesn't go to the sides. He doesn't go to the extreme. He doesn't say anything bad or anything good. He just goes in between, and he has 4 parts of his speech. Let's see it. you know that I've seen that the Romans, when they gave some advice, a piece of advice, how to make your speech, so they divided it into 4 parts. And the same thing happens here with Neum Yehuda. It's a very, we say, משוכלל, very sophisticated speech, if we can deal with it literally. We don't want to do that, but we'll do it just in short. He has at the beginning, he has the 3 psukim of introduction. אדוני שאל את עבדיו לאמור, יש לכם אב או אח? ונאמר לאדוני, יש לנו אב זקן. ותאמר אל עבדיך, הורידו אליי, ואשימה עיני עליו. Okay, that's an introduction, and you might pay attention that he doesn't mention at all the reason why he had to take Binyamin, because they were all suspected of being spies. He never mentions all the chashad of meraglim atem, and he never says that the reason why he had to bring Binyamin was in order to prove Yosef that they're not spies. Okay, that's the introduction. Later on, he has all the facts. Okay, and sorry. This is the introduction. The first pasuk, Vayigash אליו יהודה, ויאמר פי אדוני, ידבר נא עבדך הדבר. The facts is much longer than what I have seen. Is from pasuk Yutet to till Kaftet. Okay, till pasuk Lamed. Just a second, I'll show you. Sorry, how can I do it? Okay, I get stuck, but you understand that. אדוני שאל את עבדיו לאמור, ותאמר, ויהי כי עלינו לעבדך אבי, ונאמר לא נוכל לרדת את אבית, וכולי, ולקחתם גם את זה, עם פניי וקראו אסון, והורדתם את שיבתי ברעה שאולה. So that's the second part, not the introduction, but just the facts, what happened. Now he has the argument, 3 psukim of argument, ve'ata. Yes, that's the third part, starting with ve'ata. כבואי אל עבדך אבי והנער איננו איתנו, ונפשו קשורה בנפשו. ויחיר אותו כן הנער ומת, והורידו עבדיך את שיבת אבותינו, כי עבדך הרב את הנער מעם אבי לאמור, אם לא אביאנו אליך וחטאתי לאבי כל הימים. That's very interesting, because if we were instead of Yehuda, we would use this pasuk with the arvut between Yehuda and Binyamin at the last piece of the neum, of the speech, starting with Ve'ata, again, like this, like the third part, starting with Ve'ata, the fourth part, with the conclusion, starts with Ve'ata. I want to be a slave instead of the Nar, instead of Binyamin. He wants to substitute the punishment to Binyamin. I'll be a slave instead of him. As I said, it's not the din. He doesn't say it's all one big fake. He says, no, I just want your pardon. וכי איך אעלה אל אבי והנער איננו איתי, פן אראה ברע אשר ימצא את אבי. Okay? Pay attention that the third part and the fourth part, both with the facts and with the argument and with the conclusion, both start with ve'ata, one ve'ata and one ve'ata, but the maskana is very similar. Okay, the problem to Yaakov and v'chatati le'avi kol hayamim from my side, and here, and it strengthens the conclusion of all the speech, כי איך אעלה אל אבי והנער איננו איתי, פן אראה ורע אשר ימצא את אבי. So the whole problem is with my father's health. Okay? And the third part, he speaks about himself. I have an arvut with him. Okay? ערבות יבל, okay. okay, with him. And the fourth part ends with, I cannot see how he functions with this Hadashot. Now we have to see what was new in this speech to Yosef. And you know, a lot of Parshanim, commentators say different things, but let's sum up what was new to Yosef. First of all, for the first time, he mentioned Va'omar Vayetze Echad Meiti in the words of Yaakov. He speaks about Yosef as Ach Tarof Toraf. Till now, all over the stories with the brothers, the speeches of them, he never knew that Yaakov knows or thinks that Yosef is killed. He thought they just used the word Eineno. What does Eineno mean? Disappeared. He's alive somewhere. Maybe they came to Egypt to look for him. Now it's for the first time that he knows that his brothers from his father thought that he is no longer alive. Secondly, he knows, you remember that he imprisoned Shimon and told the brothers, you shouldn't come back to free Shimon unless you bring Bilti Achichem Akaton Itchem, which is Binyamin. And it took them a while to come back to Mitzrayim because Yaakov didn't want to let them go. And just when the Ra'av was stronger, then Yaakov gave in and say, okay, you can go and free him, okay, because of the Arvut of Yehuda, etc. And here it's very interesting. Firstly, because Yosef didn't know that. Yosef might have thought that the reason why the brothers didn't come for a year to free Shimon was because they didn't care about him, okay? He didn't know that the whole story, what was going in Yaakov's house. Just now he hears that for the first time, but he might have thought that they didn't come because they have problems. You know that Shimon was very involved in the story of Shechem. He was very aggressive, and that's why, according to most of the Meforshim, that he imprisoned him because he knew that he is so aggressive, he's dangerous. And he might have thought that the brothers don't want him. They don't want the right-wing brother to be. They think, okay, it's better that somebody in the government will handcuff him and he'll be in prison. So Yosef doesn't know what's going on with his brothers and what's a relation. I'm not talking now about Binyamin, I'm talking about Shimon. And just now he hears that the whole story that they didn't come for a long time was not because of the relations among them, but because of Yaakov's decision. But more than that, think now, the whole story here, the whole speech is between Yehuda and Yosef. But somebody listens to this speech, and his name is Shimon. And him, for the first time, hears that the reason why the brothers it took, and we were talking now about the hostages, let's think that they know that we didn't free them, not because like the reality that we didn't have any chance and we don't have who to talk, but just they didn't want. They didn't care. Yaakov didn't care. I'm not talking about the brother. Yaakov preferred, mamash, explicitly, the life of Binyamin on the life of Shimon. He had a reason, okay? Because he says, "Atem yada'atem ki shnayim yalda li'ishti v'echad taraf Torah." Okay, but explicitly, Yaakov puts it on the table. I prefer Binyamin more than Shimon. What or how can Shimon? Everybody talks about the curse in the next week's parsha of Shimon, but what should he do with this situation? He knows now from Klirishon, from his brother. He wasn't there. He was imprisoned in Egypt. but now he knows that his father preferred his brother Binyamin over his own life. It's very difficult to live with it. I'm not talking now about Shimon, but just think it over. And what is more stronger than it, that Yehuda says it explicitly, meaning to say that Yehuda is well aware that his brother prefers the sons of Rachel on the sons of Leah, and Yehuda doesn't care. That was the whole arvut, or the whole achdut that Yosef wanted to say. I mean, meaning to say that now it's a matter of a fact that the brothers understand and internalize that Yaakov prefers, and they haven't succeeded in changing him. He prefers the sons, he prefers Rachel over Leah from the beginning of his life. He prefers the sons of Rachel over the sons of Leah. Yehuda says it aloofly without being angry, and that's what convinces Yosef that everything is fine. Now they know how to handle the facts of life. Okay, they are no longer angry about it. He can speak about it, mamash, like without paying attention, and even though he is not angry by that. I just want to end up with, you know, that when telling stories, we know all the stories. All of the speech is just a repetition of a lot of facts that we know over the two former parshas, Vayeshev and Miketz. And the Torah repeats again in the words of Yehuda to Yosef. And as a lot of stories in the Mikra, we have 2 or 3 attitudes how to see the additions or the chesronot that we have in one speech over the facts. Sometimes we have it like Eliezer is sent to bring a wife to Yitzchak, and he has his own story on the way to Betuel, Lavan, and then he repeats the whole story at length, Yafa Sichatam Shel Avdei Avot, etc. And you know, it's also Meforshim try to equalize one speech to another and to see what the difference is. So one says that Divrei Torah ashirim b'makom echad and aniyim b'makom acher. Meaning to say that the Torah never tells us the whole facts in one place, and sometimes the Torah divides it into 2 places, and we don't have to learn. There is no significance to the differences between two stories. They're just one story. You have to take the facts from one place to another. Ramban says, where is it written? Ve'asim ha'ini alav. Here. Vatomer el avadecha horidu elai, okay, at Binyamin, ve'asim ha'ini alav. So Ramban mentions that we haven't seen that Yosef never said such a thing to the brothers, but he says, okay, divrei Torah and aniyim b'makom echad ve'ashirim b'makom acher. Okay. Another attitude to the repetition might say that Yosef Yehuda in his speech deliberately changed the facts that he knows and Yosef knows that they're not like this. Like what I've mentioned before, Yosef suspected his brothers of being spies at the beginning. That's the reason why he sent them to Eretz Israel and imprisoned Shimon. He sent them to bring Binyamin in order to show him that they're not spies. But here, Yehuda doesn't want to stress it. Maybe he doesn't want, because he wants to soften the Gzar Din. Okay, so he cannot say we're spies, we're thieves, we're this, we're that. So he says at least as he can about his guilt, and therefore he changes the facts. Yosef knows that I have suspected you, and Yehuda knows that as well. But therefore he changes the facts. Okay, and Ramban himself says that Yehuda, I mentioned Ramban in the former attitude, but Ramban says even the second attitude, that Yehuda changes deliberately his speech and the facts in his speech in order to somehow blame the governor, Yosef, in being responsible to what happened or what is happening to his father, okay? So he doesn't know that Yosef cares for his father, but somehow he goes to the very common cosmopolitan Kibud Av Va'em is well known even by Goyim. Okay, you know that Kibud Av Va'em is learned from Dama Benetina, which is a Goy, meaning to say that sometimes the Goyim are better than us, and maybe Yehuda tries, Yosef, maybe you'll care for my father more because of the speech. So he changed it dramatically just in order to blame him, to say that you accuse us falsely, and you know that, and you weren't sensitive to my father. But the third attitude with which I finish, because we have 3 minutes, is that from the one side, Yehuda doesn't do it deliberately. Yehuda neglects being suspected of being spies. He neglects finding the money in our pockets. He neglects finding the goblet. That is the episode just started with it. He neglects all these 3 facts subconsciously. He doesn't pay attention to that he does it. But look what he stresses out. He stresses out the father's health, and he stresses out that Binyamin was sent, as I said before, not to show that we're not spies, but just that you wanted to see Binyamin. יש לנו אב זקן וילד זקונים קטן. In short, יש לנו אב זקן, and he is not healthy because of you, וילד זקונים קטן, and you want to see him with no reason, not because to show that we're not spies, just because you wanted to see him. And it's very interesting that Yehuda changes it without, he didn't know that Yosef was Yosef. He didn't know that he'll reveal himself after a while, but he just concentrates in 2 points, the Abba and the Yeled, Binyamin and Yaakov. And it was a matter of hashgacha that the 2 points he concentrated in his speech were the only 2 important or significant points to Yosef, because Yosef wanted to know about his father, and Yosef wanted to see Binyamin, not because of anything. The whole story was made up. You just wanted to see Binyamin. So here, according to this shita, he changed it a lot, not because it's divrei Torah aniyim b'makom echad v'ashirim b'makom echad, not because he made any manipulation in order to stress his guilt or Yosef's guilt, etc. But he did it without paying attention. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu sivev and turned it, that the whole 2 points he was focusing on would be the 2 important point to Yosef, and that's why the effect was so good and he succeeded. That's it for now.
Good.
ברוך תהיה. בשורות טובות לעם ישראל. Good night. It will...
Or Yehuda might have been saying to Yosef, we know Binyamin has sticky fingers. That's why we didn't bring him in the first place. So now that he came and stole, what do you expect?
Sorry. Larry, I'll speak with you in WhatsApp because we have 10 seconds.